mind has a mind of its own, so to speak. He's like, yeah.
Yes.
You kind of feel like it's a different entity. Well, in yoga, in the Eastern, well, you could say Eastern culture in general, has a basic understanding, which I think most people here also understand: body, mind, and spirit. Everyone's familiar with this concept. So very much in the Eastern traditions, when one wants to improve upon themselves, become a better person, become more self-realized or self-aware, then one definitely has to kind of understand how this works. One teacher, traditional teacher, he says, in the morning you should beat your mind with the broom. How many? 100 times with the broom. In the morning you should beat your mind 100 times with the broom, and then in the evening you should beat your mind 100 times with the shoes. So it's a saying. It indicates that the mind is not you. It's an analogy, obviously, but the mind is not you. And B, it also indicates that the mind, which is not you, can be tamed. So this very much is kind of the basis of a lot of what we call yoga, meditation, and what we understand of that very image. People sitting. Why are they sitting like this? Oh, they're trying to control their mind. They're trying to tame their mind. So very much this concept of life suggests that we're the self, the spirit. We have a body, and the mind is like also a kind of body, a subtle body, or a tool by which we interact with the physical world. Americans have an interesting youth culture. I don't think anyone will disagree. Youth culture.
Youth.
A very vibrant. This is PB. They never have it anymore, but they used to have this festival called the PB Block Party. You familiar with it? It's a huge party. They used to close the whole block down. I think they shut it down. It got a little out of control. And we're right in the middle of it, so we got to hang with a lot of participants. But very much, we in this culture, I think most people agree, okay, we're not our body, but very much it's kind of confusing. And many times we think that we're our mind. Whatever our mind wants us to do, then we do. And so very much this youth culture is kind of that, like whatever your mind, impulses you to do, go for it. Whatever it says, just do it. And the more you do that, the more free you are. The more you can really express your true self. So it is understood. But until the next day on somebody's iPhone, they catch a video, you're dancing on the table, you're singing a crazy song, then you might question, was that me? Or was that my mind? And many people say, oh, I lost my mind, right? There was one guy, he did welfare activity, and right here in San Diego down the street, he lost his mind. It was a pony person. So he lost his mind. In other words, again, we kind of have to see that the mind is kind of like this entity, and it has a tipping point, and also under intoxication or something like that, then the mind can cause us to do things that even the next day we're like, was that me? Did I do that? How did that come about? So I'm trying to show for many different ways how we're different. Modern science is in an amazing way catching up to this fact. If anyone's familiar, there's a lot of studies now about neuroscience and free will. What is free will and what is like neuroscience? Neuroscience means to understand the brain, to understand behavior, basically, and how much of things are our own nature. And this is very common if you go to take a class in psychology. And how much is nurture? How much of our activities is nurtured by the world around us, and how much is it our own nature, our own initiative, things that just very much part of us. So this is a very amazing study that came out last year, 2011 and 2008 were major years for this development. And basically what they found is they put 12 participants, the best study they've done so far is in Germany. They put 12 participants and they hooked them up to the fMRI. It's like a brain scan, takes photos, it can detect different kinds of activity. And they had participants choose whether you would lift the right arm or you would lift the left arm. And they would ask questions. You can choose whatever arm, you know, something like that. And don't tell us, just lift whatever arm you want. And they gave enough time in between so that any brainwave activity after each decision was made was like not left over or interfering with the next result. And in this way they did many series of tests, and what they found out is that when the participant was asked a question, please raise an arm, they can tell 7 seconds before the participant decided what arm they wanted to raise. And it got so predictable that very few people, even today in neuroscience, are refuting this understanding that the conscious, actually let me read this statement because it's very nicely worded. I'll probably make it confusing. So it's very nicely stated. It's saying, because, let's see right here. It's saying, because since the subject's choice of movement is known before the subject decides to move, the subject's conscious decision to move cannot be the cause of movement. It's a very interesting point. So what is this saying? We have no free will, we're just a computer. Well, it's saying that our brain is just a computer, really. That's what it's saying. The brain is a computer, and the computer is designed to function a certain way, and we're not necessarily aware of that. Now, that's not so crazy, is it? Every day we eat something, and our body is digesting that food, but we're not necessarily conscious of how it is doing that, right? Another example that they give here is that in order to see light, for example, when you have a camera, you're taking a video, but that data on that card really means nothing to you unless you can transmute it in some way, like on a computer, and it can give you like a visual. In other words, it has to be interpreted. So similarly, our eye is seeing things, and the brain is interpreting all of this data and giving us a picture and helping us make decisions and things like that. So basically, there has to be this interpretation process, and we're not aware of that, are we? We're just, hey, I'm just seeing. I don't know exactly how the camera works. I'm just using the camera. I don't know how digestion works. I'm just eating. So there's this separation between the self and its field of activity and the field of activity itself, which is almost a very, very highly sophisticated, you could say a program, computer, it's not a computer program, far more sophisticated, but definitely there's a type of mind to it which is not our own and outside of our control. So what is this really saying? Referring back to Bhagavad Gita, spoken by Krishna, it's an ancient text of many things, philosophy, wisdom, but in the very beginning, this same point that modern science is realizing today was also being discussed back then, 5,000 years ago. It said, nature is doing everything. The soul or the self is observing, and when the soul or the self is an illusion, we take credit for the things that nature is doing, basically. And that happens all the time. If somebody says, hey, you're very good, like many people say, you're a very good mridanga player. And I could be like, yes I am, you know. But I have to realize to some degree how much maybe I desire to play, but very much my sanction to play or my ability to play is coming from an intelligence far beyond my own. Same thing with looks or beauty. People say, oh, your eyes are so beautiful, and the person responds, Yes, thank you. As if the person designed their DNA to look like that. So we kind of take credit for nature, and it's preposterous. And really what it's saying is, if we are not the cause of our movement, and even in the physically, then how absurd it is, or how much illusion we have invested our lives into this illusion, thinking that everything I think or will, is going to come to pass, and if it doesn't, woe to me, and if it does, I'll get to enjoy those. So, okay, there's many implications where this can go, but I would like to sum it up with an introspective passage from the Gita, which, after revealing this knowledge, which I have similarly revealed, now kind of guides us into a new way of thinking, or a more harmonious way of living with this more conscious awareness of this mind, body, spirit difference. So Krishna in the Gita, who's also known as the master of yogis or master of mystics, he says, you have the desire to act. You have the right to desire. That's fine, that's normal. You can desire. You can act all you want. But never consider yourself to be the cause of the results of those actions. He says, never try to enjoy the fruits of your labor, the fruits of your action. Why? So I'll end there. And it's a very nice summary, but I'll let you all ponder that. And if you'd like to answer that question in your own, you can. Or if you'd like to give a comment.